Okay, we're starting today, Genesis chapter 30. And at this stage of the game now, let's see where we left off. Jacob has the youngest son of Isaac and Rebekah, and his brother Esau have their squabble, and Jacob gets the inheritance and the blessing because of Esau's godlessness, but ultimately because of the sovereignty of God who chose him before they were even born, that Jacob would be the one. So now Jacob flees for his life because of Esau's bitterness and hatred toward him. And he is sent off to Laban to find a wife. And that's where we left off. I think he found, let's see, what was the deal with Laban regarding his wife? He meets Laban and Laban has two daughters. And the daughters are, what are their names?
Leah and Rachel.
Leah and Rachel. Jacob is particularly fond of one of them, not so fond of the other. And what was the situation there with Leah and Rachel?
He favored Rachel over Leah.
Yeah, and on what basis does he favor Rachel over Leah?
I think she's younger and prettier.
That's the sense, isn't it? She is the
Mhm.
younger of them. And we're told very clearly she is more attractive. She's more beautiful than her sister. Um, but what happens on the wedding day? So Laban makes a deal with him. He's not just going to give him one of his daughters. What's the deal what does Jacob have to do?
Worked for me for 7 years.
Yeah, so he gives himself 7 years of labor for Laban. Um, and he does that, and he says Jacob was so in love with Rachel that it seemed like a few days for him. And so 7 years are up, and he's ready to receive his bride. And what happens?
He gets deceived into working another 7 years because he slept with the oldest daughter.
Yeah, Laban switches him out. He gives him Leah instead of Rachel. Again, all this stuff is, I think a lot is because they use the veils all the time, and that's a really weird thing that you would be able to have sexual intercourse with a woman and not know who it is.
A lot of good wine pasta.
I guess so.
I don't know if any of you remember the Three Stooges when Curly had a veil on and was trying to seduce the Sultan.
It was probably like that. So poor Leah, she's just rejected. And the ultimate part is that, you know, Laban is not a good man necessarily, but he, in this moment, if you'll notice, that God has a plan and Laban is moving toward what God has ordained, and Jacob is not. Like what we saw with Isaac. Isaac is about to bless the wrong son, and he's deceived into doing the right thing and blessing Jacob. That's the mystery of providence here. God just intervenes, and Rebekah steps in, and this is kind of what happens with Laban. Laban steps in and deceives Jacob into doing the right thing because Leah is the one. Very clear as you follow through the story. Leah is the chosen one of the two. And, our salvation does not run through Rachel, it runs through Leah. She's the one who will give birth to Judah, who will be the tribe of the kings, and Christ will come through Leah, not through Rachel. So he gives her to him. And again, the reason that Jacob is about to choose the wrong woman is because, like Isaac, he is being motivated by his appetites and desires, not by the word of God in this. So the only reason we're given that Jacob loves Esau is because she's pretty. She's an attractive woman to him. And but Laban says, okay, you can have her too, but you'll need to work another 7 years. He gives her Rachel after that first week, and then he's going to stay on for another 7 years after that. Well, the story goes, and you can see, as you read the story so far, it's hard for us to look back and judge the actions of people because we're not given a whole lot of context to it, and the customs are very strange to us. However, if you follow who is the Lord pleased with and who is he seemed to be not so pleased with, what's your take in this story here? As we left off last time, where regarding Leah and Rachel, how does the Lord feel about them?
Well, Rachel's womb was closed.
Yeah, the God closes Rachel's womb, which is a very difficult thing for a woman, especially at that time. And what does it say specifically about Leah?
I think he hears her cry and that he has mercy upon her, so he gives her the children.
Yeah. When the Lord, verse 31, when the Lord saw, this is chapter 29, that Leah was hated, he opened her womb. He is close to the broken heart. He always goes in the opposite direction of the world. The last shall be first, the first shall be last. As you did to the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And here you see this with Leah. She is hated, brokenhearted. Can you imagine her distress of being married to a man who does not want her? And the Lord opens her womb, and you can see that she's hoping that through all the birth of these children that her husband will be attached to her after conceiving so many. But with each child, she gives acknowledgement to the Lord. Names the first one Reuben. The Lord has looked upon my affliction, verse 32. 33, because the Lord has heard that I am hated. He's given me this son, Simeon, also. And then Levi, that my husband will be attached to me. And then she gives the fourth one, Judah, she gives praise to the Lord. And then she ceases bearing. So four boys, which is pretty good. It's far more than, that's twice as many as Rebecca had. And that's 4 times as many as Sarah had. So we're getting there. We're starting to see an increase of them. And remember, the Lord's promise in the context overseeing all these things is the word to Abraham. The 3 promises to Abraham. Always keep those in mind. They're going to keep coming back again and again. What were those 3 promises the Lord gives to Abraham regarding his covenant and our future salvation?
Land, blessings, and the fruit of the earth or whatever, expanding your family.
Yeah. Land, blessing, and descendants. Yeah. We're going to have multiply as the sand of the sea. And they're not, you didn't see that with Abraham because he just really has Isaac, and then Isaac only has Jacob and Esau. But now with Jacob, we're going to start to see that fulfilled in many descendants. And we right now have 4, and he's got 2 wives, and each of those 2 wives has a servant. So that's where we pick it up today. We're going to turn back to Rachel and see what's happening with her. And again, it's an interesting story. It's almost like an arms race that's going to happen here. We're going to be seeing this, a race to have as many kids as they can. But it's all fulfilling God's destiny. You're going to have many descendants. And so let's take a look at each of these. So
Before you, I'm just trying to get the timeline. You know, he is deceived, and they give him Leah instead of Rachel.
Yes.
He finds that out. Okay, and does he get Rachel right afterwards?
yes,
And
he says after the 7 years. So he's been with Laban now 7 years.
yeah.
He gets Leah as his wife, and then Laban says, I will give you Rachel if you work for me another 7 years, but you need to wait a week. Let Leah have her time with you, and then we'll give you Rachel. And so a week after marrying Leah is when he marries Rachel.
Okay.
And then he'll stay with Laban for another 7 years. So we're at weeks at year 7 of 14 that he's going to be there.
Okay.
So let's pick it up there. Let's see, Claudette, you want to read that for us? Verses 1 to 8.
Yeah, when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. She said to Jacob, give me children, or I shall die. Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? Then she said, here is my servant Bilhah. Go in to her so that she may give birth on my behalf, that even I may have children through her. So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went in to her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, God has judged me and has also heard my voice and given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, with mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister and have prevailed. So she called his name Naphtali.
All right. I want to do a little exercise with you here with this first paragraph. We'll call this game Phrases We Have Heard Before. Does this sound
That'd be a-
familiar to some of the things we
That would be a great Bible great game show, wouldn't it?
look at this again. And there's so many phrases in this paragraph that we've heard before. Such
From
as
Abraham,
what was
Sarah,
that? Yeah, what was that was said?
got the servant girl, have a child with her.
Yes. She may give birth on my behalf, that I may have children through her. That's exactly what Sarah said regarding Hagar. She gives, remember, Sarah's barren, she gives Hagar to let me see if I got here, to Abraham in order to have a child through her. So she, just like Sarah, with the Hagar incident. Okay. What else have we heard before?
Well, Jesus was called the fruit of the womb.
That's later on after this, but
So this is all
before Genesis 30, in the first parts of Genesis, particularly regarding Abraham, Isaac, and so forth. Some of the things, there's some things here that are very interesting that we've heard before. That one's obvious one, that we have children through her. He gives this whole giving Bilhah in order to have children through her. But how does she describe her relationship with her sister here?
They're at odds with one another. They're competing.
Yeah, what does she say at the end, verse 8?
Mighty wrestlings.
Mighty wrestlings with her, she has wrestled with her sister. What does that remind you of?
Esau and Jacob.
Yeah. It's just like Esau and Jacob who are wrestling in the womb. Which
Jacob's doing all right for a guy his age.
Jacob, he's amazing. Yeah. He could be on one of those Cialis commercials. What else do we have here regarding their relationship with the Rachel Leah dynamic is very similar to the Jacob and Esau one. And which one does Rachel remind you of? Would you say Rachel is more like the Jacob in the story or the Esau in the story?
Esau.
Yeah. What makes you think that?
Well, only that she was not the chosen one.
She's not the chosen one.
She's bitter. She's bitter.
Yeah,
Bitter at her sister.
she envied her sister, like Esau. But notice what she says, and you can see how Leah, in a sense, stole her spot. Right? She took her spot. That she was supposed to be the one to be married first, and Leah sneaks in there and takes her spot. But also, look at what she says at the very beginning. What does she say to Jacob? In verse 1.
She envied her sister.
Yeah, after that, what does Rachel actually say to Jacob?
Give me
Give me children or I'll die.
Have you heard that, something like that before?
Sarah.
That is so similar to what Esau said to Jacob. Give me some of that red stew or I will die, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he sold his birthright. There's a lot of echoes of this. And so when we come away from the story, you're like, all right, it's clear God is showing grace and kindness to Leah, and Rachel is just chafing against this and She sees her wrestling with her sister. She's envious. She is trying to make this happen. And so the best she can do is the best of the worlds. Maybe I can have, through my servant, I can have children through him, for him. So Rachel, what becomes of this then? So Rachel, she is barren. And what's her solution then to this barrenness?
Take my
To have,
servant.
to have her maid do it.
Okay, so she gives Bilhah, her maid, to Jacob as a wife.
Does she eventually have any of her own children with him?
Mhm.
We will find out.
Stay tuned.
There's a further echo in here. I'm just, as you're talking, I'm thinking of Ishmael.
Yeah.
You know, Sarah couldn't have any kids. So she gave Abraham, what's her name?
Hagar.
Hagar.
Yeah. Yep.
And they end up with Ishmael. And Rachel is willing to give up Bilhah to have a child.
Yes, exactly right. It's exactly right. And now the children that are given to that come through Bilhah, Rachel names them. And what are their names? We had the 4 already. We did the 4 from Leah. Now we have Bilhah's sons, and their names are, the first one is
And
Dan. And what does Dan mean?
God has judged me and heard my voice. No.
Yeah, something like that. Dan means judge or something like that. Is that? I know, like Daniel, we chose that name. It means God is my judge. So we'll put
Dan
some,
sounds like the Hebrew word for judged I have.
yeah, judged. Okay. And so her thing is that God has judged me and has also heard my voice and given me a son. Now, I want you to, just a little note here. Look at how Leah speaks about her sons. She says of Reuben, the Lord has looked upon my affliction. Simeon, the Lord has heard that I am hated. Levi, my husband, will be attached to me. Judah, I will praise the Lord. With Bilhah's sons, we have Dan, God has judged me and has heard my voice and given me a son. And then she gives verse to, who's the next one?
Naphtali.
Naphtali.
Which means, I'm gonna note on that,
wrestlings of God.
wrestlings of God. And it's here, she says, I've wrestled with my sister and prevailed. Okay. It's a small consolation, but she takes it.
So Pastor, we know that Leah is the chosen one, but we don't really know that until after the fact when she has the children, and we know that the children were in the line. Was there anything that the Lord said that would indicate that he chose Leah?
Over Rachel?
Yeah.
Before that time, no. But
So the only way we know that she is the chosen one is because of the sons she had.
through the sons, and also when she dies, she's the only one buried with Jacob. She's the only one buried in the family tomb. Rachel is not buried there. She's buried, I think, in Bethlehem. And the servant. So Leah is a very special place, and she's not only the mother of kings; she's the mother of priests too. All the priests come through her as well. So she's very highly significant, and just the number of kids that she's going to have. But I want you to notice of the way that Rachel addresses the situation, thinks about Dan and Naphtali. How is it different from what Leah said? Look at that again. Reuben, the Lord has looked upon my affliction. The Lord has heard that I am hated. I will praise the Lord. For Rachel, it's God has judged me and has heard my voice. I have wrestled with my sister and have prevailed.
It's all about her.
It seems to be about that. She seems to be the one about her. But look at how she refers to God. It
As
may
a,
not seem like much to us, but it is actually a big deal. Go ahead, Bob.
as a judge,
As judge, but how does she call him?
It's rather impersonal, isn't it?
Yeah, she calls him God, not by the Lord is the name of God, the very personal name. Rachel does not invoke the personal name of God. It's a very you know what it's kind of like it's I hear this sometimes when I hear people pray and they pray, God, please help me. God, please help me, right? As opposed to when you hear someone pray, Father, have mercy upon me. Please help me, Father, right? What's the difference? You know, they're both crying out to the same person, but one is from a distance and doesn't know him in that personal way. And so that's why it is significant that Leah is invoking the name of the Lord, his very personal name that he revealed himself to them, whereas Rachel is not. She is, yeah, and maybe she'll change. We'll find out. But she will continue to, we'll see how she does with that later on. She will change later on, but right now she's at a distant place. All right, let's pick up with Leah. Now it turns back to Leah. So now we've got 6 boys. All right, without looking, can you remember who the 6 boys are?
Dan and
Reuben,
Naphtali.
Simeon, Judah,
Reuben, Simeon, Judah,
Levi,
Levi,
Dan,
Dan.
Naphtali, not Asher.
Not yet, not yet. So we
Asher.
got the order goes Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, then Dan and Naphtali. Okay. Now we come back to Leah. Let's pick it up there. Jack, you want to read that for us? 9 to 13.
When Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Then Leah's servant Jilpah bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, good fortune has come. So she called his name Gad. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, happy I am, for women have called me happy. So she called his name Asher.
Okay. So Leah is inspired by so Leah has ceased bearing children. And what does she decide to do?
Same thing her sister did.
Yeah, so she gives Zilpah to Jacob as a wife. Now that's going to be a very interesting thing that she does here. We'll come back to it in a minute, because this is sort of absurd to us right now. Why would she do this? Why would Leah do such a thing? You know, you give your servant when you're barren and don't have any kids to take care of you. And so you give your servant like Sarah does. And so like, I'm going to need a son. And if I can't have it, maybe through Hagar, we can have that. And you can understand that. And Rachel as well, she needs a son and she can't have it. So she gives her servant to Jacob to give her a son. But Leah already has 4 kids, 4 sons. Why do you think what's going on here? Why does she feel the need to do this?
Who wants to be better than Rachel?
It could be a selfish reason of she wants to one up her sister on these things, although she's already ahead of her 4-0, right? 4-2, if you want to give them 2 there. So, but as actually what's going to happen is, I'll give you a little heads up. She will say that God is going to reward her for doing this. that the interpretation of Genesis 30 is that this is actually a good thing that she does. And we're like, how in the world is this good? So I think first we need to understand that the goal in all this, all these things, is to give Jacob as many sons as possible. Because that is the plan of God and the promise of God. That he will have descendants, as many as the stars in the heaven, as the sand and the sea, and to have that. And so Leah and Rachel, I'm going to give them a little more credit than simply selfish reasons of wanting to have kids, wanting to have an heir to look after them, because even Rachel would have pulled back at once she gets that first son and said, okay, I've got my son. We're good now. But she allows her to have a second son through her servant. And now Leah wants to give Jacob more sons. And she realized she can't. And so she does the same thing her sister does and gives him her servant Zilpah. Because I can't imagine that that's a easy thing for a woman to do, to give another woman to her husband. I can't imagine that that would be an easy thing at all. That would be a great sacrifice that you only take in extreme circumstances. But this is no ordinary family. This is not a way a family is expected to behave or should behave. But in this context, because salvation is riding on this family, and the destiny is for Jacob to become a great nation with many children. And sorry, 6 is not enough. We need more. And Leah decides, we're going to get him some more here. I can't do it anymore. So Zilpah, you're taking over and you're going to give him 2 more. And she does. And Leah's servant. So Zilpah's sons are
Gad and Asher.
Gad, which means, what does Gad's name mean? Do we have that?
Happy?
Is that happy or is that Asher? Asher's happy, I think.
Okay. Good fortune.
Good fortune? I think it's good fortune. Sorry. Good fortune has come.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and then Zilpah gives birth to Asher, who is,
With my happiness.
that's got to be happiness, right?
Yeah.
And she says, happy am I. Okay. Again, this is her first names, because they were coming through her. You can see how personal she receives this as the gift of God to her. This is now just bonus here. Happiness and good fortunes come to me, as she has 2 more now through Zilpah. So all right,
Now,
let's go.
we're talking about just the boys. Didn't Leah also have Dinah?
Yes, later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we're still halfway through the chapter. We got more kids to go here. We're only up to 8. We got like 5 more kids to go. So let's pick it up from there. And let's see. Bob Fowler, you want to get the next part here? 14 to 18.
In the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also?" Rachel said, "Then he may lie with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes." When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come in to me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he lay with her that night, and God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob, the 5th son. Leah said, God has given me my wages because I gave my servant to my husband. So she called his name Issachar.
Okay. Now we have the Mandrake incident here. So what's going on?
Poor Jacob, the dude must be exhausted.
He's like a stud horse right now. What happened here? What's going on with Reuben?
He goes out and pulls whatever a mandrake is from the field.
Yeah, anybody have any notes on mandrakes, what they are? I think there's something special about them. I'm not sure if you guys have any study notes on that. Are they like a fertility thing? If you-
It says they are called a love apple, and the roots of the mandrake plant were considered an aphrodisiac by the ancients and used to promote sexual activity and conception.
Okay, so these are significant. The mandrakes are love apples here, and so they're in the field. And he brings them to his mother Leah again. But Leah's still hoping that she can give more kids to Jacob. And so Rachel wants the mandrakes too, because she's barren. So now both of them, Leah, after giving birth to 4 kids, can't give birth anymore. Rachel is still barren. And so Rachel wants the mandrakes, right? Want some of them. Again, for those reasons of I want to conceive and have kids. What's the deal though?
Sell me your husband.
Okay, Leah can lie with Jacob tonight in exchange. Again, this is sort of this sounds familiar to you a little bit, doesn't it? Where we've seen this kind of an interaction between siblings where one exchanges something for the other. Give me a bowl of soup for those things, and what gives my birth rate, but here it's Leah is allowed to will now have access to Jacob. And you can see Leah's, even the phrase, is it a small matter you've taken away my husband, implies that Jacob has probably not been sleeping with her for some time after she stopped giving birth. And the sense is that, he's not giving her that attention that she needs. So she can go and lie with him tonight in exchange, and Jacob is informed, you must come with me. I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. Okay. So this is so humiliating. So Jacob is hired out. Hired for mandrakes. But what's the result of it?
Gets pregnant.
Leah gets pregnant. Leah conceives and gives birth to the 5th of her sons. And what is his name? That
Ishmael.
Issachar, right? What does that name, Issachar, mean? Is that wages or something?
Yes.
Wages, okay. But notice what she says. The wages is God has given me my wages because I gave my servant to my husband. That was a sacrifice for her. Not just an emotional one, but also those servant sons would, in a sense, deplete the inheritance to her sons. If you think about that now by giving Jacob more kids, more servants, more children that are not hers, but her servants now, that means less of an inheritance for her boys because they have to split it even more. So there's a sacrifice involved in this, as well as the just handing over another woman to him. But she wants to have more children, and in response, God gives her a fifth son. So we now have Issachar. So now we're up to what, 9? So the 9 are, what do we got? Reuben, Simeon,
Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar.
yes. So there we are at 9. Okay. All right, let's pick it up from there. And Teresa, you want to get this for us here? 19 to 24?
Yes. And Leah conceived again, and she bore Jacob a 6th son. Then Leah said, God has endowed me with a good endowment. Now my husband will honor me because I have bore him 6 sons. So she called his name Zebulun. Afterwards, she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah. Then
Okay.
God remembered, oh, sorry.
Oh, let's stop there for a second. All right, so Leah conceives again a 6th son, and his name is
Zebulun.
Jacob.
Zebulun, which means, is that endowed or something?
Some
Honor.
trans will honor.
What is it?
Will
Honor.
honor.
Will honor. Okay. Okay. Now my husband will honor me. You can see her, she's not implying that he's not been honoring her, he's not been attached to her. He's really it's true what it said at the beginning, that she was hated. Not that he had malice toward her, it's just that he did not love her. He did not really care. His heart was with Rachel, and he did not love Leah. And the Lord sees her broken heart and decides, I'll make up for it. I'll give you 6 sons. How about that? And so we have a 6th one here in Zebulun. And then we're told he gives birth to a daughter named Dinah. And she will come into play later on in the story. But she's mentioned right now. So there's the 12 sons. Right now there is 10 sons and 1 daughter. And now Rachel is still watching from the sidelines here until we get to verse 22. And to answer your question earlier, Teresa, let's see what happens to her. Would you read that for us? 22 to 24.
Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, saying, May the Lord add to me another son.
Yeah. So God remembers, he listens, and he opens her womb. Now, remember what that means when God remembers, what that means?
He's keeping his promises.
Yeah. Yeah. He is really acting now. He is acting on his promise, on his promises. When God remembers, he's about to do something at that point. And he opens her womb, and there Rachel bears her first son, and his name is
Joseph.
Joseph, which means that may he add or something like that. Is
Mhm.
that right?
Yes.
And the idea is may the Lord add. Notice he now invokes the name of the Lord the first time. May the Lord add to me another son.
So she's grateful now that she's actually doing the childbearing.
Yeah. Yeah. Now she's there. He makes him wait. He humbles that. That's how he does. It's like he immediately look at how he's dealing with people here. He immediately blesses Leah because she enters with a broken heart. She's hated. And he immediately blesses her with children. And then he decides, before he will bless Rachel, he has to break her heart too. And bring her to a barren place and to watch and to struggle. Can you imagine the frustration of seeing, longing for a child and seeing your sister just pop out kids left and right. And then to see your servant give birth two, and then to see the other servant give two, and then her sister give three more. It's awful. It's so hard for her, and she's finally broken by it. And the Lord, now is the time to bless her. And so that's how he operates. It's like he breaks our hearts so that he can bless us, he can draw near to us. That just seems to be the pattern throughout. And let's continue there. 25. Let's see, is that where we kind of
Mhm.
all right, so what are we doing on time right now? 2:58. Okay, let's continue. Let's finish up the next section here. 25 down to 36. Rob, you get that for us?
Okay. As soon as Rachel had born Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away that I may go to my own home and country. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, that I may go, for you know the service that I have given you." But Laban said to him, "If I have found favor in your sight, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. Now your wages, name your wages, and I will give it." Jacob said to him, "You yourself know how I have served you, and how your livestock have fared with me. For you had little before I came, and it has increased abundantly, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I turned. But now when shall I provide for my own household also?" He said, "What shall I give you?" Jacob said, You shall not give me anything. If you will do this for me, I will again pasture your flock and keep it. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from it every speckled and spotted sheep and every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and they shall be my wages. So my honesty will answer for me later, when you come to look into my wages with you. Everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and the black among the lambs, if found with me, shall be counted stolen. Laban said, "Good." Where am I?
Yeah.
And Laban said, "Good. Let it be as you have said." But that day,
I'm sorry.
you won't get anything out of me but name, rank, and serial number, Pastor. But that day, Laban removed the male goats and that were striped and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had white on them, and every lamb that was black, and put them in charge of his sons. And he set a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob. Jacob pastured the rest of Laban's flock.
All right, let's go through what is going on here. Let's talk about this here. So come back to the beginning of this section here. So right now, so Rachel has given birth to Joseph, and now what does Jacob say?
Send me away that I may go to my own home,
Yeah,
He
my
wants
own country.
yeah. Jacob speaks to Laban, and basically it's time to go. Time to go home. Time for us to go back.
14 years have passed, right? Presumably.
Yeah, at the least, yeah. So it's this 14 years now. We've seen. So let's talk about this. So we're at 14 years later. So we've had the birth of how many? 12 kids over this 14-year span. 14 years and 12 children later.
And no sign of Esau.
Not yet. We'll see him. We'll see him again, but not yet. Esau is still down in Canaan or wherever he is. He's far away from them. He's far away. It's a good day's journey. So what does he say? Give me my wives, my children, from whom I've served, I may go. You know the service I've given to you. Okay. Laban says, let's go through here for a second. So give me my wives. and children. And you know the servants I've given to you. And what does Laban say to Jacob, verse 27 and 28?
Well, God lets him know that Jacob has been a great benefit to him, obviously.
Yeah. So how has he learned that?
Divination, through a vision of some type.
Learned by divination. Divination. What is divination?
That typically means go to a card reader, that kind of mentality.
Yeah, there are the spiritual practices. As far as I know in the law, that was forbidden of people
Right.
to go to be using those kind of magical art to try to discern that. But that law was given after things had been clearly established of how people will hear from God. So he learns by divination. We don't know exactly what he does to learn this, but he has learned that the Lord has blessed me because of you. So he's understanding the Lord is on Jacob's side here.
So he tries to cheat him?
So it seems that way in a minute here. Yeah. And so he tells him, name your wages and I will give it. Okay. That sounds fair. What does Jacob say in response? So Jacob's wages. What are his wages?
He'll take all the imperfect sheep.
Okay, for you had a little before. Okay, you yourself know I've served you. Verse 29, how your livestock is fair with me. You know I've been faithful to you, and you've done well. You had little before I came and has increased abundantly. The Lord's blessing is on this man. Again, we're seeing the fulfillment of those promises. I will bless those who bless you. You will be a blessing. All people will be blessed through you. Jacob is the conduit through which God is going to bless people. You want to be close to this guy. You want to be on his side because he is God's man here. You know that. Laban understands that. Just like the pagan kings, if you remember, when was it Abimelech who came to Isaac and Abraham and acknowledged the Lord's with you. And so let's have a peace treaty. Let's just, be good to me. Don't take advantage of me. Don't abuse me. You had a little before I came, but now when shall I provide for my own household? Okay. He said, well, what shall I give you? And Jacob said, don't give me anything. If you will do this for me, I will again pasture your flock and keep it. And he says, let me take what? Every speckled and spotted sheep and every black lamb. Okay. So he takes every spotted, speckled, black lamb or goat from the flock. Okay. He's going to remove them. And that seems to be an obvious, because very easy way to tell now which ones are his, those that are speckled and spotted and so forth. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. So everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and black among the lambs, if found with me, shall be counted stolen. Okay. That's pretty clear so far. He's going to take the speckled ones, the spotted ones, but anyone with color or not white, and they're his, and anyone that is of a white lamb will be counted stolen if he's with his flock. Okay. Laban agrees to the deal.
Yeah.
Okay. But what does Laban do?
He cheats him. He goes in under the cover of darkness, so to speak, and gets him before Jacob can.
Laban says, let it be done. But that day, Laban removed the male goats that were striped and spotted, everyone that had white on it, and every lamb that was black, and put them in the charge of his sons. And he set a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob. And so basically, if you think about it, what's really going on here? So the idea is he's going to pasture his flock and let me pass through all your flock today and remove those that are speckled and spotted. And that will be my wages. But Laban then takes them out of there and gives them to his sons, and then sets a distance of 3 days' journey. So basically, there would be none in that flock then that would belong to Jacob. Is that correct here? So there,
Yeah.
I think that's what's happening here. Let me see if I have any.
So Laban's screwing him, frankly. He's not giving him the wages he was due.
Yeah, he's kind of doing a little trick here. He's, he says, fine, you can have, those will be yours. But then before the time comes for him to take hold of them, he gives them to his own sons. And so now it's like he's left with a flock with none that are speckled. And let me see if I got a little note on this in my study Bible app here. This story always kind of is confusing the way it's told. As payment for his services, Jacob asked Laban to allocate to him all speckled and spotted sheep and goats. Having agreed to the wages, Laban secretly removes all the animals allocated to Jacob and gives them to his sons. Yet again, Laban's deceitful nature influences his treatment of Jacob. All right, so now Jacob will come up with a plan to recover those flocks here. So Laban agrees to the deal, but he secretly removes these sheep and goats and gives them to his own sons. All right, so Jacob, and then separates himself with a 3-day journey. Okay. We find out later on Laban is powerful. He's a powerful man in that town. He's lived there all that time. He's prosperous. He's rich. Jacob is really at his mercy. And here he takes full advantage of him and sets a 3 days journey. Let's take a look at the next section here of what Jacob will do. This is an interesting passage here. So, Claudette, you want to get that for us? I'm going to set up a new page here. We do that. 37 down to 43. Are you there? Did we lose her? All right, never mind. Jack, you want to get that for us? 37 to 43.
Then Jacob took fresh sticks of poplar and almond and plane trees and peeled white streaks with them, exposing the white of the sticks. He set the sticks that he had peeled in front of the flocks in the troughs, that is, the watering places where the flocks came to drink. And since they bred when they came to drink, the flocks bred in front of the sticks, and so the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob separated the lambs and set the faces of the flocks toward the stripe, and all the black in the flock of Laban. He put his own droves apart and did not put them with Laban's stock. Whenever the stronger of the flock was breeding, Jacob would lay the sticks in the troughs before the eyes of the flock, that they might breed among the sticks. But for the feebler of the stock, he would not lay them there. So the feebler he would be Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. Thus the man increased greatly and had large flocks, female servants and male servants, and camels and donkeys.
Okay. I've always struggled trying to figure out what is going on here with this particular scene. But let's break it down and see if we can figure this out. So Jacob does what now? How is he? Again, he's been taken advantage of. His flocks, the speckled, have been put into Laban's son's hands, and now he's trying to figure out, okay, how can I make sure that my flock is prospering here? So what does he do? He takes fresh stick of poplar, almond, and plane trees. And
I'm trying to figure out how those sticks influence who has stripes and who doesn't.
yeah, I think I have a note here. I don't know. It's not really that helpful. Jacob attempts to manipulate the breeding process of the flocks by placing fresh sticks of poplar and almond with plane trees. Maybe it's something that attracts them, that they would want to go toward and eat, I'm guessing, I don't know. In the troughs where the flocks were watered, these sticks, which have peeled white streaks in them, correspond to the genetic makeup of the flocks, producing animals that are striped, speckled, and spotted. The
That's
text
true.
could not be understood to imply any causal relationship between the sticks and the newborn animals. I don't know exactly what's going on with this.
Yeah.
So is it possible that he's using them as a draw to get the flocks to come to that location and then to breed there? But
Well, when I first was reading it, I was thinking that the sticks were looking like white stripes
Mhm.
Yeah.
against
right.
the black sheep, and so that they looked, striped.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But I don't, again, I don't
think
know how that would do anything.
I think the striped sheep see these sticks and it looks like looks like some of our own, it's that deception. So they show up and they start breeding around these sticks. So you,
Maybe it's clearly what's happening is he's attracting. It's trying to scheme it here and there, and there's a breeding going on here when they came to drink. The flocks bred in front of the sticks, and so the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. So the flocks are breeding. When they breed in front of the sticks, they seem to be bringing forth Jacob's sheep, striped, speckled, spotted. All right. Striped, speckled, spotted. Okay. Now the next part is interesting. What does Jacob then do? So when they bring forth, when they're breeding in front of him, and then there's born a sheep has stripes on it, or speckled, or spotted.
He separated it from the flock.
Yeah, Jacob then separates these sheep from Laban's flock, okay. And he put his own droves apart and did not put them with Laban's flock. So he keeps them separate from Laban's flock. I'm wondering about this too. Is it one of those genetic things where if you have spotted sheep, they're going to produce more spotted sheep? If they mingle with non-spotted sheep, would they produce, which is the dominant trait here? Would they produce non-spotted? That's what I'm wondering, is if it's a genetic thing. So if you have like people with darker skin or hair have more dominant genes than those of lighter skin and lighter hair. And so you end up with kids who tend to have, if you're brown hair and you marry someone who's got blonde hair, chances are your kids are going to have brown hair, not blonde hair, because of the whole dominant recessive traits and genes. I'm wondering if it's that going on with this.
Yeah, I think it is, but I'm confused because I thought all those spotted sheep were 3 miles away now.
Well, he has taken, yeah, they're 3 days away, right? Like he set the sticks that he had peeled in front of the flocks. But he is overseeing Laban's flock. And so he's the ones have been taken out. So his flock right now is just white sheep, as far as I understand. It's just Laban's sheep, and they're all white. And so Jacob then takes Laban's sheep, and the day of separation hasn't come just yet. He starts trying to produce these spotted sheep, and once he gets them, he separates them from Laban's. I think that's what's going on. So I don't think they're dealing with the ones who've been taken away from him, because he did put 3-day journey, and there's no mention that he closed the gap on that. So, yeah, it's a.
I think it sounds to me like he's just trying to correct what Laban did. Laban stole something, so now he's trying to come up with his own newly spotted sheep or whatever.
Yeah, he's left holding the bag. I mean, Laban has played a dirty trick on him and taken all those from him. And normally, he'd be done for. Normally, those non-speckled, those white sheep would produce more white sheep, and Jacob would get very few of them, if any. And now it's like he's doing some things, and somehow it's working in that these sheep are producing speckled sheep. and he
I- I-
separated them.
I
Yeah.
have something here. It says Jacob was knowledgeable about sheep, goats, and cattle, having kept his father's animals for almost 90 years, and Laban's for the last 14. He knew that when one uncommonly marked animal was born with a recessive gene, he could then begin to breed that gene selectively to produce flocks and herds of abnormally marked animals, which were in no way inferior physically to the normally marked. Once he began this breeding process, he sought to stimulate it by some methods that may appear superstitious and foolish to us, such as mandrakes, etc., but is most likely that he learned that when the bark was peeled, there was some stimulant released into the water that stimulated the animals to sexual activity.
Hmm.
In verse 38, the word conceive is literally to be hot, and it said the animals to be in heat. The plan was successful, and he kept his own flock separate from the abnormally colored ones of Laban. His system worked to his own advantage, not that of Laban, who had for years taken advantage of Jacob. Jacob gave God the credit for the success of his effort.
It's really interesting. These are kind of, I think the main point we get is that, so then Jacob separates the sheep, and then Jacob basically targets the stronger sheep, the better ones, for breeding. And he leaves the feebler ones in Laban's flock, right? So he does a little.
They're both, being dishonest with each other in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, in one sense, Jacob is not being dishonest, though. He just like he was not dishonest with Esau when he took the birthright from him. He didn't steal it. He took advantage of him. And so he takes advantage of Laban, but he's not. Laban, on the other hand, is really being more deceitful in pulling away and that kind of thing. And Jacob is making the best of his situation here. And it's pretty sneaky in one sense, but it's honest. It's not nothing. He's not doing anything illegal or deceitful. He's tending his sheep in a way that gives him an advantage. But what's more so is how it ends. Thus, the man increased greatly and had large flocks, not just with sheep, but servants and camels and donkeys. And that is, again, Laban, even basically it's this: if God is for us, right, who can be against us? Laban is the most powerful. Jacob is vulnerable. He is far away from home, from all protection, and he is completely reliant upon this man Laban, who is doing everything to take advantage of him. And even so, God blesses him, even though Laban curses him or tries to diminish that. We see God's hand in this the whole way through. So that's the end of chapter 30. So a lot of strange things going on in this chapter. But but one thing I hope you can see, I hope some of the basic lessons are clear. How the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and he blesses them, and that even if the whole world is against them, God is with us, and he cares for his people. He blesses them and takes care of them. And so there's no reason to fear. Even Jacob, who has every reason to be terrified, God is with him. So we'll break it there.
Both in Laban and Jacob, you see fallen men.
Yes. Yeah, bro, everybody in these stories, it's a broken world. It's a broken world. But there's faith there. In all of that, there is faith. And they're acknowledging the Lord. They're giving him thanks. They're crying out to him. In all their mess, there is faith here, and the Lord is pleased with that. So let's break it right here.